Hi, it's Pete the Polymath here. I haven't made a video for a long time, and that's because of a lot of reasons, like skin cancer operations, diabetes, leukemia, false teeth. Anyway, look, I've been flat out. I've been working continuously through all of this, and I've been doing the same thing for the last 9 years, which is pretty much continuing to update and make conclusions from the polymath perspective, which means what happens if a person takes in all of the proven knowledge in the world and then forms conclusions from that. Now, this is most unusual. No one else does this. No one else can do it. No one else. But in the future, everyone will know what I know. It's just I live in a time when discoveries are coming out and not spreading very widely. Anyway, just on the nature of what knowledge is, I put it down to 5 levels. The first is I've been told it's true. The second is I've seen it's true. The third is I've tried it and it is true. The fourth is I've learned it and it is true. And the fifth is I have mastered it and it is true. So my analogy is the push bike. A person hears it's possible for a person to ride a bike. They then see a person riding a bike. They then try and ride the bike. They then learn to ride the bike. And after a number of years, maybe decades, mastery of the bike has been achieved. Now I've done the same thing. I've divided all of the sciences into about 36 different categories of knowledge. So it has to be comprehensive. Now, the thing I want to discuss with you is what we are not told about the way evolution works and our part within it. So if we wanted to understand our relationship with people who lived, say, 2,000 years ago, we would say, well, that is 80 generations. Now, the number of ways related to those people is then 2 to the power of 80, which ends up being about a trillion, given about 25 years per generation. So that means 2,000 years ago, you may have been related to 1 million people, but on average, you were related to them 1 billion different ways. Each one of those ways was essential. If one of those ways had failed, then not only would you not exist, then everyone else in the world, in your particulars of geographical ancestry and sort of stuff, they would not exist either. So that is vital. You don't hear about that. We don't hear about the way we are interacting with that evolutionary process. Now, the consequences of this, I'm telling you now, and I'm just giving it you as information, that first category of knowledge, is that people living in 2,000 years' time will be caused by everything you do or don't do. It's very, very exacting. The whole process has to be exact. So the forces that made us are the same forces that make the future people. Right. Now, there is an aspect of us that is not this genetic thing that builds the multicellular creature. There's an aspect of what we are that is the cell. It is the cytoplasm, and we have a way of measuring what is happening with that cytoplasm as it goes through time, and that is called mitochondrial DNA. But I just like to deal with the whole cytoplasmic thing as something that is alive at the most foundational level. Now, each one of our 70 trillion cells, maybe 30 trillion, each one of those has life inside it. Now, where does that life come from? Well, it comes from your conception when your genetics put it all together, but that life inside each of the cell actually comes from a long time before that. It first emerged with your siblings, so you gained your individual cytoplasmic identity about 5 weeks after your mother was conceived. Right, so it's an age for when that immortal aspect of you became your own, and it was what ended up dealing with all of your genetics, and even at the moment in your body, every second there are 50 million cells die, and that's balanced by every second 50 million cells divide. Okay, so we're in this balance of death all the way through our lives until eventually it's gone. So what is that aspect of immortality, perhaps? So we are totally mortal. We have nothing of our memories that can possibly be passed on to the future. We know that because there's nothing of the ancestors' memories being passed on to us. So what is it that they will have? Now, my analogy of this whole process of life moving through time, this immortality moving through time, my analogy is the relay race. Like, so each of the runners carries a baton. So the race begins with a baton. That baton is passed to another runner. It's passed to another runner. It's passed to another runner. It is the same baton. Different runners. It's the same thing with us. We have the same consciousness, but different bodies. Now, with genetics and with cytoplasm, we don't need to be the direct ancestor. We don't need to be the one that actually passes this stuff on for all time. It can be passed on through our relatives. So our relatives, siblings, cousins, all the way out, they carry it on through them. So you almost have no unique genes. You have few, like 140 mutations. It's very small, and most of those things, if they were bad, you would not have been born, right? That's just one of those things. We're the ones who were born. We're the ones who continue without any problem. Anyway, so it's carried on through all the relatives, all of that genetic stuff. Now, with the cytoplasmic stuff, this is the eternal thing, the stuff that lives inside you, that has been alive continuously for 3.7 billion years. That is passed on through your sister's daughters. It's passed on through your mother's sisters, daughters. It's passed on through your mother's sisters, daughters. Now that is the eternal lineage. Now, how unique it has to be in regard to the future, we have no way of knowing. It seems to me that every consciousness is born the same. We just end up learning different things. And therefore, the future, so in a religious term, life after death will be exactly in the terms of us being alive after the deaths of our ancestors. So this is not speculation. This is the actual way the process works. Now, I'm surprised that no one else talks about this stuff. I've been talking about it for years, but people, as you know, like I've got 170 something videos on this channel, and last week I had a day when I had 0 views from all those videos. No one shares my videos because my channel is not big. Like, the algorithm doesn't deal with it. Like, I don't get anything. I don't even get likes. I don't even get comments. I don't get anything, or pretty much nothing. So what I've told you is that first level of knowledge. It's just information, and you have to now sort of develop the practice of thinking this way, so that it becomes these other more substantial things until it becomes like common sense. How could you possibly have not realized this aspect of immortality that exists within you, within every one of your cells? So look at my other channel, the rest of my channel, and look, see how I'm teaching voice. I ended up being the most highly skilled vocalist in the world just by chance, because I learned overtone singing and put enough time into the instrument to learn it. I became the best radiographer in the world, and that was because to do that you needed to reject everything that the textbook was telling you about how to do x-rays. Now, I presented papers at national conferences, and there's parts of my channel on there that tells you about that kind of thing, about the errors in geometry that are pretty much universally still practiced in the profession, and I still work to correct those videos around the world. And you'll see experiments like inventions I've made on musical instruments, on microwave cooking, and visual arts and sort of stuff. I was the person who invented the selfie stick. And you might be sort of saying, oh yeah, big claim there. Well, I've been uploading for 17 years, and my first videos were mockumentaries. The first time that anyone had actually put a selfie a video camera on the end of a selfie stick and started doing that kind of stuff. Now there is another channel that I have, and I'll mark it in the comments and stuff. It's called Gleeson Glee, and it's mainly my music channel. It has a lot more of the older sort of lessons on how to master the human voice. So there are four things. There are four principles of advancement. Now the first of those is voice. Be a master of human sound. The second is movement. Be a master of human movement, because that will mean you have no more fear. You have just the ability to deal exactly with whatever consequences and situations you arise within. The third is a particular way of thinking. You might look up my video called Billions of Billions to understand a three-dimensional way of understanding single-dimensional kinds of concepts, or dealing with the numbers of things, like the number of cells in our body, or the number of neurons in our brain, the number of, our brain's firing off 1,000,000 billion synaptic events every second just so we can keep on talking and thinking and sort of stuff. So I've always been dealing with this kind of stuff, and I've always been ignored. I've not been shared. It's just like I'm an original thinker. I'm rejecting all of the standards and stuff, and I'm sort of saying, what does it all mean? A lot of my research over the last sort of 5 years or so, and I'm putting in 10 hours a day of actually research and sort of continue my education, is work on what religion is, how it holds us in a certain kind of way. Now, if we can replace religion with knowledge, with truth, then we solve most of our problems. We even solve corruption in sort of normal society. If we're working towards that universal goal where the people who are born after us, who are just as conscious as each of us, if they are born into a paradise, then they won't be corrupt. We live in a world of corruption where people can be bribed by money and sex and power and all that sort of stuff. Well, that's just chimpanzee stuff. That's shaved monkey stuff. We can do better than that, and we have always done better than that. It's just in this time we've sort of lost our way, and it's ironic that we have the most information about what our way is and what it is that we are, and now is a time when we sort of can't figure it out for some reason. Anyway, subscribe. I tend to get one new subscriber every sort of 3 or 4 weeks. Do that. Share this far and wide. Get some information. Spread it round. If you become amazing thinker and singer and sort of stuff, you don't want to be alone. You want to be able to share that. You want to be able to get other inspiration from other people. You want to be able to get together and exchange ideas and build these amazing concepts and music and thought and sort of stuff. So we have to get our act together, particularly in this time when AI is taking over. I am pretty much like an analog for AI. All I am is just components of learning structures and information. How much information can you put into a system before it eventually sort of starts to sort of summarize and sort of say, well, this is what it all ends up being. So I'm not fixed in my ideas. They're always changing, but always building on previous success. And that's all I can do. I can try and inspire you to become the best kind of human. Be more advanced than these other people who are sort of ruining the world. And I'll leave you with one question. Who or what gave you the right to burn fossil fuel? What a serious question that is. And it was the one that I was asking 40 years ago, and 37 years ago I ran Climate for Change, which was a public radio sort of thing. It was after I went to the first climate change conference in Australia, and then I went to the 20th one in Australia and stuff. So that's been my thing all life. I'm trying to save humanity by getting humanity to wake up to what it is to be human. We know what it's like to be a shaved monkey, domesticated kind of human, but what's it like to be a real one? Find out.